How's it going, everybody? My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, I'm going to present my top 5 most impactful free agent signings of the first week of CFL free agency. But really quickly before we get started, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button or subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content, just like this. Thanks for all the support lately, and without further ado, let's get into it. So before we get started, I have a few qualifiers for who is eligible to be selected for this list. Number one, I'm not including any newcomers to the CFL, as I consider those players, if you look throughout history, most of these guys are just lottery tickets. You don't know whether they're going to pan out or not, and so I'm not going to evaluate them as impact players for CFL teams in 2021 until we see them have an impact in the CFL. And number two, I'm not counting re-signings. So players that were previously under contract with that CFL team that have re-upped with that team, I'm not counting that. So I'm only really focusing on the established CFL players that have played in the league and have changed CFL teams. So without further ado, let's get started. At number 5 on the list, I've cheated a bit here, but I couldn't really separate these two players and what they will bring to the BC Lions, and that is Lucky Whitehead and Shaq Cooper, adding some explosiveness to the BC Lions offense. Let's start with Whitehead. Whitehead is the more high-profile player of the two. He spent some time as a kick returner with the Dallas Cowboys, and is just a really explosive player, though he has little experience actually running a route tree on offense. He comes to BC reportedly seeking to become a full-time CFL receiver, which is interesting because I think this situation in BC couldn't allow him to grow because he's not going to be expected to be one of the core pieces of that receiving group with Brian Burnham, Shaq Johnson, Dominic Rhymes, and such already there in place in BC. So he's going to have an opportunity to learn, but hypothetically, he still has a chance to start on that team, and I think they can really do a lot of creative things in the CFL game with motion, jet sweeps, and stuff to get him involved in the offense. I really like that for BC. Gets them more explosive on that side of the ball, and Cooper really does the same thing, just at the running back position for them. They had John White, who was a very established veteran running back, but he was getting a little bit up there in age, and I think what they're trying to do here is just add some explosiveness and raise the ceiling of this offense on a weekly basis. And Cooper again adds that more of an explosive element. I think he can help them in both the passing and the rushing game. I think that in limited opportunities with Edmonton, he looked great. At first, I was surprised that they didn't bring Cooper back because I think he really showed a lot of potential at the end of 2019 when he got a chance to start a few games. But I really like this for BC. I think it raises their ceiling on offense if they can implement these pieces in the right way. I'll also add that Whitehead will probably help them in the return game if they wish to implement him like that. At number 4 on the list, again, I couldn't separate these two signings because I think they fulfill the same purpose, and that is both of the Herdman Reed brothers signing in Saskatchewan. Let's start with Jordan. So Jordan is the more established player of the two. He's just gotten a lot more playing time playing in BC over the last few years. He's established himself as a starting Canadian linebacker right in the middle of the defense. He has some flaws. He's not the most perfect player in coverage. He's not dominant in any one area, and I think that's what they're going to miss with Cameron Judge now not returning to Riderville. But regardless, Jordan fills a role right in the middle of that defense. He's going to start from day one if they wish to do so. And then his brother Justin, who's a less developed prospect, but has seen some time with the Argos, and he was going to be playing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats in 2020. From the Riders' perspective, I really like this because, yes, they're going to lose Cameron Judge. Huge loss, don't get me wrong. But they did bring in Micah Johnson, another impact player on the defensive line. They bring in these Herdman Reed brothers. Not only does Jordan fill the purpose of being one of the core Canadian starters in the ratio, but they also have a really good injury replacement now with Justin there. A good developmental prospect there that's further along in the CFL pipeline. I'm just really excited to see how those two players perform in Saskatchewan. And like I said, I think the big thing out of this is that Cameron Judge is not returning to Saskatchewan. And if he ever does come back to the CFL, reportedly as an NFL tryout, he will be playing with another CFL team. So that's going to be exciting to see where he signs, because he is an impact starter from the moment he steps on the field in the CFL in 2021. At number 3 on the list, I'm going with wide receiver Bryant Mitchell going to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Now, CFL fans may have forgotten about Bryant Mitchell because he's spent the last couple of years in the NFL with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But in 2018, he had over 800 yards in just 11 games at a really healthy yards per catch mark, which was really stood out to me when I was watching some of his highlights. He's just this big-bodied receiver that Winnipeg desperately needed. He's the guy that's going to come down with these contested catches and knows how to high point the ball, knows how to shield the ball from defenders, and I really like his fit in this Winnipeg offense because, again, this is a ceiling-raising move by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. They were really good at wide receiver last year. I shouldn't say they were really good, but they were very complimentary at wide receiver in 2019. They have, the two Canadian receivers in Dembski and Wolotarski. They bring back Lawler, who was their leading receiver that year. Darwin Adams is obviously their number one guy, but they needed another player to really round out that group. And Bryant Mitchell really brings the skill set that the group was lacking otherwise. So I really like this for Winnipeg. I think it's going to make a huge difference come the 2021 season. Now at number 2, we get into a move that I think that doesn't just affect the team that the players sign with. It also affects the league in general, just the landscape of free agency this year in general. And that is Seontae Evans signing with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Evans is a CFL veteran. He's made a couple all-star teams during his time with the Calgary Stampeders. I wasn't too impressed with his tape in 2019 when I rewatched all these games from the 2019 season from Montreal. Montreal was actually dead last in passing yards allowed in 2019, and I think their corners were really a big part of it. They took a lot of unnecessary risks. They let players get behind them, gave up a lot of big plays. But regardless, I am confident in Evans' ability to bounce back because of his CFL history. Also, I just love this for Hamilton because you look around the league right now, what does every team need? They need defensive backs. I think that's the weakest position right now in the CFL. And you've seen that a lot of talent that goes from the CFL to the NFL in recent years have come in the secondary or at the strong side linebacker position, which is basically a defensive back position as well. You see these guys go into the NFL, and the CFL has not really been able to recover a lot of those players. You think about guys like Trey Roberson and Jonathan Rose, who are still buying their time and trying to make an NFL roster in 2021. And so Evans was probably the number one defensive back on the market. And who does he sign with? The team that already had, on paper, in my opinion, the best secondary in the NFL come 2021, the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And Evans just really just rounds out this group. I'm not too sure where he'll play in this unit, but it gives them a great rotational option. He's obviously going to start somewhere. I just don't know where he figures into this lineup right now. Because Hamilton brought back all of their starting defensive backs from 2019, such as Delvin Breaux, Frankie Williams, Tunde Adeleke, Carriel Brooks, and Jamal Roll. They brought all 5 of those guys back, and they add Evans. I'm not too sure where Evans slots into this lineup, but regardless, they're going to have a very healthy rotation of CFL experienced guys that, like I said, I just think this is a rich get richer move. It really hurts the Montreal Alouettes too. I think that regardless of how Evan played in 2019, he was going to be, if he came back, a very important piece to that defense. It really hurts that defense in the long run, I think, on the back end, and also prevents Evans from going to any other contender that may compete with Hamilton for the 2021 Grey Cup. So again, this for Hamilton and what Evans will bring to the table as a veteran Canadian Football League defensive back. Now we've arrived at number 1 on the list, and before I spit out who I think is the most impactful free agent signing from this offseason so far, I'll give you guys a few honorable mentions. One, I think James Wilder of the Edmonton football team. I think I really like that. I think he is the perfect fit. He brings that pass catching skill set that's going to fit really well with Trevor Harris, and I really like his fit with Edmonton. Another one is Micah Johnson coming back to the Saskatchewan Roughriders. He doesn't exactly replace what Charleston Hughes brought to the table, because Charleston Hughes was an edge rusher. Micah Johnson is an impact player in the interior, but I think that he is ultimately a star-level CFL player that is going to really help this defense have a presence up front, and I think they'll be able to patch that defensive end role in other ways as we go forward in the coming weeks. And then my final honorable mention is Natea Jay going to the Montreal Alouettes. I like this one because even though it flies below the radar and Jay's not the biggest CFL name out there, he is a very solid veteran, and I think that was just a sneaky big need for the Montreal Alouettes because they didn't really have any real established Canadian receivers that they could throw out there to start on any given week. And so I think Ajay really brings that and fills a hole in their lineup. And that leads me to my number 1 pick on this list for the most impactful free agent signing of the first week of free agency. And that's defensive tackle Armando Seawell going to the Montreal Alouettes. And I really can't understate how important it was for Montreal to get this done, to get an impact player on the defensive side. Because they lost Deontay Evans, they lost John Bowman in free agency. And so bringing in a star caliber player like Seawell really helps mitigate those losses. He will give them a veteran presence up front on what looks like is going to be a very young defense. I expect guys like Marc-Antoine Dequoy to start in 2021. I really do. I think that's the direction this team is going. And so having a veteran presence like Seawell up front, combined with other free agent signings like Nick Usher coming from the NFL and bringing back Woody Barron, it is just going to be a really great job for this defensive line that really looked like a gigantic weakness just a couple of weeks ago for Montreal. And I've stated my thoughts on Seawell before. He's going to affect both the passing game and the running game by just disrupting the middle of that offensive line, taking on the double teams, splitting them, and getting after the quarterback. He does this on such a consistent basis, which is why I have so much confidence in his ability to do this in 2021 again, even at the age of, I think he's going to be 35. But that's just my list for today. Please let me know in the comment section below if I missed any of your favorite signings from the first week of free agency. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting that like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. Thanks again for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'm also going to leave a link to the channel's Facebook and Twitter pages in the description below if anyone is interested in following me over there for channel updates and such. And with that said, I'll see you guys next time. Peace.